Hey, what's going on?
Hey, how are you?
Good, you?
Good, good, thank you. Th Thanks for hopping on real quick.
Oh, thanks for having me on, man.
No worries, no worries. So how are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm just back in St. Louis for the holidays, spending it with my family. It's been about 3 years actually since I've been able to spend it with them because of COVID and everything. I was stuck in Portland for a while.
Oh wow. Wow, that's good then.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So yeah, like I said, thank you for hopping on real quick. If you want to introduce yourself to the audience and let them know where you've played and a little bit about who you are, just so they have an idea.
Yeah. All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Jake Leeker. I played soccer. I'm a goalkeeper at I played for the University of Memphis in college. Then I went undrafted and then went to preseason with Real Salt Lake. They liked me. They offered me a deal with Real Monarchs. I briefly went on loan to the first team. Then after that season, I went over to the Portland Timbers, spent 2 years there, and then this past season I was at the Pittsburgh Riverhounds.
Nice, nice. That's awesome. And so just as a transition, I would love to hear what was from going from the University of Memphis to being undrafted and then starting your journey. What was the biggest difference that you saw between, playing in college and then that jump up to the professional level?
Yeah, the it was the speed. The speed of the game was just like so different. It took me about a month before I
Hmm.
even adjusted. And when I first got there, luckily the first couple days I ended up doing pretty well to earn myself a contract. But then that next month I was sort of struggling trying to just keep up with everyone because the speed, like you're mentally, like you have to really adjust. Not like physically it was fine, but like mentally is where the biggest difference is.
Mm. And that's interesting. And so by mentally, do you mean just being able to deal with the nervousness and the doubts or the speed of play, understanding the game, or a little bit of everything?
Well, absolutely that, but like I'm talking, like obviously, like you're nervous. I get nervous before games still. To
Hmm.
even now, you just have that's something you just have to deal with all the time. But I'm was specifically speaking about the decision making and like you have to know what you're gonna do because everyone else you're playing with is has been the best on their teams and are at the top of their level, and so you have to know what you're gonna do next because these players they're smart. They're pushing you the right way. Like they know exactly what they're doing. So yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so that kind of leans into my next question. From a goalkeeper perspective, what have you noticed between, a college goalkeeper, so you could use yourself when you started, to now? What are some big differences between that level of goalkeeping? And decision making could be absolutely one of them, but
That's honestly that's the number one thing I've noticed. Right. So all these college kids and stuff. I actually spoke to my old club about this a while back, but all these goalies nowadays are talking about like being amazing shot stoppers, making like the upper 90 saves, all this sort of stuff. But it really comes down to the decision making. I've been told like my scout when I was a rookie was like good goalkeeper, great shot stopper, but he makes mistakes. And so like it really when you're getting up to these higher levels, like that's what matters is like limiting the mistakes.
absolutely, absolutely. And so, what would be your advice? Because obviously, as goalkeepers, we're human beings, so we're bound to make mistakes at some points. What would be some advice or for some younger kids that, if they make a mistake in the game? Obviously, if you make a mistake as a goalkeeper, you can be punished pretty badly. So, what are some things that maybe you use or that help you if you ever make a mistake? How do you rebound from that?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, goalie is a tough position, right? So, I mean, never really like hardly ever the hero, always the villain.
Hmm.
Um, but as far as like mistakes go, when I was in Portland, one of my favorite goalie coaches ever, Aiden Brown, he's now with Chicago Fire, but I used to really dwell on my mistakes. Even in training, I'd be like a few reps in and like make a mistake, and then I'd be dwelling on it like the rest of practice. And he'd be, he started because like you can't just like forget about it. Like you can't, it just can't happen cold turkey, right? So
Mhm.
it's a process to sort of mentally train yourself to sort of get rid of these bad thoughts in your head. And so he started initially with my body language, right?
Mhm.
So I was just tricking myself. Every time I made a mistake, I was dropping my head, my shoulders were down, like all this sort of stuff. And he's like, don't show anyone that. At least if you're thinking about it, don't show it. And then
Mhm.
the rest of the stuff will follow once you realize, oh, hey, I'm actually sulking right now. And so once you realize that you're doing it, then you start getting in your head and thinking like, oh, okay, like I need to stop and I need to refocus and just on to the next one. And he always said, next one, next one, next one. So
That's awesome. That's a great tip. That's something that I think something that people might not necessarily think about when it comes to helping yourself. That body language is so important. So this is kind of tied in as well. In your opinion, perspective, what do you think the most underrated skill goalkeepers have or need to have is?
I'd say it's communication and organization.
Mm.
Like you have to be able to know exactly what every like you have to know your system, right? You have to know it's not
Hmm.
just like you're a winger and the winger only knows like what the winger's supposed to do and where they're supposed to be, but they could care less what the left back's supposed to be doing, right? So
Hmm.
the goalkeeper has to know every position on the field, what every player needs to be like, what they need to be doing, what position they need to be in at all times. They need to be able to organize and confidently organize and like sort of command a big presence in the box so that they'll listen to you.
All right, awesome, awesome. And so my next question is, I always find, people's journeys that didn't go exactly to plan very, very interesting. So just bringing it back a little bit, when you went to the MLS draft and were undrafted, was there ever, what was that like? Did you expect to be drafted? Were you thinking you were? And then if you were and it didn't happen, how did you deal with that? Was it some doubt or was it, all right, next thing, I'm going to find my next opportunity?
Yeah, so actually I was fighting like tooth and nail trying to I didn't even get invited to the combine.
Okay.
And I was basically just reaching out to any contact I had, trying to like sort of sort myself out because I knew I wanted to play and I thought I was good enough. But yeah, like I'm waiting there on draft day. I'm thinking maybe someone will pick me up because like I was on the draft eligibility list. Some old coaches mentioned like, oh, we might have some interest or whatever, but it was nothing like solid. And so I was just sitting there on draft day, like going through, just like waiting, and nothing ever happened. And I was like, oh man, like, what am I gonna do? Like, what's happening now? Like, am I gonna have to get a real job? Like, I don't even know.
Mhm.
But like, all I did was I went around and I literally, my dad and I sat down and wrote a letter to every single USL coach and MLS coach. And I ended up getting a few responses and getting invited out to preseason that way. But yeah, like I didn't know I didn't know what was happening at the time. I was pretty down on myself, and then all of a sudden I get a phone call from Real Salt Lake inviting me to preseason, and it was like, whoa, it just happened just like that, and I was out the next day.
Wow, that's amazing. That's an incredible story. I think I always find that stuff very interesting because I think, something that I've learned from just playing the game and progressing and as well as doing the podcast is the people who become successful are the ones that don't view that immediate setback as a failure, and it's just that what's next, what's coming next. So I think that's really awesome. So now getting back more into the present, I always find this fascinating as well on match day, mentally and as well as that warm up, is there anything specific that you do? Or is it just treating it the same as every day and not putting too much emphasis? What's kind of your thing?
Well, yeah, I used to like try to get myself hyped up. That ended up sort of affected me negatively. I started realizing that I was getting like overhyped for these games, and I was making like irrational decisions and stuff. And so actually went back and sort of started realizing that I needed to like calm myself down. Like I had a lot of nervous energy before games, and I needed to like calm myself down and find some like mental clarity. So I started doing that. I didn't really know how to do that. I just knew I needed to do that. And then I actually came across. Have you heard of the Calm app?
Yes, I have.
Oh,
Yes, actually.
you know the LeBron segment that he
Yeah,
talks about? Yeah, yeah. So I
yeah.
started actually just started doing that this year. I started listening to the LeBron section on the Calm app, and it
Mhm.
seemed to really help me a lot. So I started doing a little bit of guided meditation before games, and it like sort of settled me down. I started having a little bit more calm confidence, I'd say,
Mhm.
and sort of helped me limit my mistakes.
That's awesome. That's crazy you said that because I had that same thing where when I get ready for a game or something, it was always like some crazy music, like just getting
Yeah,
ready,
yeah,
all that stuff. And I realized like, oh my God, I'm making myself more nervous. So I
yeah,
actually
exactly.
started to meditate as well and all that. And it's crazy the difference. At first I was like, nah, it's probably just, but when you consistently do it,
Mhm.
it's actually fascinating. Um, so this is we kind of touched on this before. So when you're doing that warm up, when you're going through those days, um, right before the game, when you're on the pitch in the game warm up, do you do the same thing every game? Do you switch it up? Or is it the same thing to make you feel good?
Same thing every game. Same thing every game. I go sort of like in my head. I try to like walk myself through what kind of situations. This is how I base my warm up. I try to
Mhm.
walk like through my head, like through the game. What kind of situations am I going to see in a game? I'm going to see some crosses. I'm going to see some cutback crosses. I'm going to see some shots from distance. I'm going to do some distribution. And so once I sort of like collectively come up with everything that I'm going to see in a game, then I sort of come up with some drills. Um, that'll quickly allow me to like sort of replicate what I'm going to see in a game. And then once I have that written out and everything, I just do the same exact thing. I've done my same warm up ever since I was a pro, every single time.
Interesting, interesting. That's I always like asking that question because I found some people do exactly like that, and then other people switch it. So I always just find that part of it really fascinating. So now this is another question I have as well. Um, so from going a little bit further back now, when you were called up for the first team training with Real Salt Lake, what was that experience like? And did you notice any differences between the players, mentally, physically, whatever it may be?
Um, that's a good question because honestly, a lot of those guys that I was playing with for the Monarchs are now first team players, right? So the level is not really that much different.
Hmm.
Especially during training. Like during training, you'll have some guys like some older guys with like more experience, and they're the kind of guys that can just like coast through training and then all of a sudden switch it on for a game.
Hmm.
Those are typically the more experienced guys and stuff. The level, I would say everything is a little bit more cleaner, if that makes any
Hmm.
sense.
Yeah.
The touches were cleaner. The decisions, like every, like I said before, like everything is now people can like do things like if you're a pro, you should be able to do everything that most guys are able to do, and then it becomes up here and making the right decisions and all that sort of stuff. So once you get higher and higher levels, everyone is making the right decisions more often and making less mistakes. And so like that's again the biggest jump that I see even from the USL going up to the MLS. It's just everything's cleaner, everyone's making the right decisions.
That's interesting because I noticed that as well. I actually had my first professional trial this year, and
Oh yeah,
yeah, and so the one thing I noticed as well was that, and I'm a short guy, so I'm only 5'11", so it
oh
was
yeah.
amazing to see. Like there was one player I remember going up against who was like 6'6", and he was huge. I just remember being like, I gotta come out and catch a cross over this. That's crazy. But yeah, no, I feel that as well. So to kind of wrap it up because I don't want to take up too much of your time. If you were to say, what would you say the top three qualities of a goalkeeper are, or what you deem to be most important?
Okay. I would say like decision making, like we were talking about this whole time, it's a common theme that's number one. I'd say organization is up there,
Mm,
number two. And then I'd say number three is the ability to make a big save in a big moment.
mm,
Like everyone can make some big saves during practice and stuff. And like this year, even for me, like I think I could have done better with that. Like during training and stuff, I would make some amazing saves. And once it came to the games, I wouldn't be making like the big save that because nowadays like goalies need to be making one or two like big saves in order to
mm.
like win a game. And so I'd say that's probably the top three right there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so, for aspiring professional footballers, younger kids, whoever it may be, what would be a little bit of advice that you could, give to them, if they, for their aspirations?
I would say like me, just don't give up. I've been rejected so many times. I'm still getting rejected. I'm still trying to move up the ladder. I'm still getting rejected all the time. And I say, don't give up. Like just listen to my story a little bit if you're interested. And like my draft day, like I didn't get drafted. I
Mm,
ended up I have almost 50 games now starting in the USL Championship and
that's awesome.
um never was drafted. No one had any interest in me. And so like if you really want to just like keep working at it and someone will take a chance on you. But once you get that chance, you better not mess it up.
I believe it. And that's like the one thing too that I don't think, everybody understands is, like you said, you almost have 50 games in USL. And that alone is such an awesome accomplishment because the tenacity that it takes to just stay at that level, is everybody, sometimes people can get there, but it's about the longevity. So that's awesome.
No, thanks, man. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you having me on. And hopefully some kids will take my advice here and hopefully we'll
Absolutely.
see some future pros out here.
Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I'm sure you're a busy guy, so it means a lot to hop on.
Oh, of course, man. Thanks.
No problem. Have a great day.
You too, man. See ya.
See you.